Hi, I'm Dara Dandurand. I'm a creative director and strategist, journalist covering immersive media and technology, and curator who teamed up with South by Southwest this year to bring you 3 panels about the future of fashion and tech. The following panel, called Augmented Human, Designing the Future of Wearables, features 2 creators that have done wonderful work really defining what the future of wearable technology will look like from not only the fashion side, but also all the gear that goes into creating it. Stay tuned and enjoy South by Southwest 2021.
Hi there. Welcome to this panel for South by Southwest 2021. I am thrilled to be moderating. I'm talking to 2 wonderful women in the fashion tech sphere. Today's topic is all about wearables, one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world. There's so much creative potential, so many directions you can go. Before we get into conversation, I'll let each of them introduce themselves and some work they might want to bring up relevant to today's conversation. Kailu, I would love to start with you.
Thank you so much, Dara. And it was such an honor to be on this amazing panel. I'm so excited to talk to the both of you and, love to learn more about your work and, share my own work as well. So my name is Kailu, and I am currently the co-founder and chief creative officer of a company called Hello Ava. And basically, we are a AI-powered skincare tech platform that provides personalized skincare product recommendations to our users. So we are a tech company that launched in the Silicon Valley back in 2018, and right now we have over 200,000 users, and you can find us on Instagram and all the other like social media platforms. So this is what I'm doing currently, and I guess the reason that brought me to this panel today was not pretty much relevant to beauty tech. So my ex-life before founding Hello Ava was a fashion designer. So I was trained at Parsons in fashion design with a focus in building technology-related products. So one of my projects that I've been working on was called KG Projects, which uses mixed reality to enhance the a fashion storytelling experience. So we started with AR, basically developed an app that kind of activates the 4-dimensional elements on the collection of garment that I designed, and it interacts with all different layers of the textile, and it enriches by introducing music, sound, and also a VR eventually. So the project was eventually presented at New York Fashion Week with a collaboration with Pepsi, and I was collaborating with a couple fashion designers to basically utilize what I built earlier and kind of bring it into the VR world. And we collaborated with Pepsi and kind of just created a theme that is surrounded by their new launch of the Live Water. And with the designer, we are able to create a lot of interesting visual on the garment and also in the VR environment. So in addition to this project, I just have been working in the world of fashion and in technology, wearable tech being one of them, and been working on a lot of user-centered design for companies like Ideal, Hermes, or Intel. Yeah, so that's just in a nutshell of what I do, and I'm very excited for this conversation.
Thank you. I am too. That was wonderful. Thank you very much. And Anina, I would love to hear what you've been working on, a bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anina, and I'm the CEO and founder of the 360 Fashion Network. So, with over 2 decades of experience of building a bridge between fashion and tech, I've done everything from mobile applications to dress up to digitizing myself in VR to creating mocap suits to building robotic dress kits to enable fashion designers to create their their own smart technology. I created a smart safety ring for women that has beautiful design. You can see my wireless charging wallets for sale at Anina 2049. And I'm coming out soon with a collection of really cool t-shirts with embedded electronics in it. And my most recent project is a luxury robot that connects to an IoT jacket, and the jacket has an embroidered touchpad on it that if you swipe, it's connected to the smart hotel system, and the managers can very easily respond to what's happening in real time in the hotel situation by changing the lighting, changing the music, lowering or raising the temperature, and calling the luxury CartBot robot to bring those sweaty, annoyed, COVID fearful new guests a drink and make their life easier. So yeah, embedded electronics into fashion. I have a lot of experience with that. It's so much fun. And pretty much I've run the gamut of fashion tech and here we are back at the beginning. You know, I did AR in 2010. Nobody wanted it. All my whole career, nobody wanted anything that I have to offer. But who knew you needed a pandemic to finally kick in and make my talents potentially useful? So I'm so delighted to be here on this panel. I think South by Southwest, you know, they kind of went away from fashion tech. So kudos to you for bringing it back and making it center stage. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm so happy to hear that. And it just goes to show between the backgrounds both of you just provided, you're so versatile. And that's part of what we're going to chat about today, which is design thinking that really takes coming from different disciplines, understanding different practices to put together wearables, to put together fashion, styles, anything that have component functionality, interactivity, digitization, all of these things combined. And then as far as South by, I mean, just a cutting edge festival that wants to have these conversations. So I'm really happy that they've provided this track and wanted to make this happen with me. And yeah, this is going to be good. I'm very excited to start asking questions. So I'm going to jump in right off the bat. Very, very curious. How did you both find the niche of wearables? I'm going to say wearables overall and define it quickly for the audience. A lot of people think of smartwatches, a completely relevant mainstream example. Very cool. Touches into the IoT network, especially of like different like smartphones or whatever, or you know, syncing up lots of different types of apps to hardware. And the point being is that there's the expectation of beautiful design that you're going to wear every day. When you think of a phone, phones can be beautiful, absolutely, especially they're becoming more linear, more minimalistic. But I'm very interested in combining that high-powered technology into clothing, and especially personally making it assimilate so we don't even realize how mature the tech is, how stylish the wearables are. And there's got to be a balance of that. So I'm curious, how did you guys both get involved in this world? How did you figure out that you wanted to go down the road of wearables and fashion tech?
You first,
Yeah.
Whomever.
Yeah, so I think for me, I don't think I ever have a, you know, like there's like a light bulb moment where I will be like, oh my God, I want to work in fashion tech. I think my initial thought on, you know, bringing technology into fashion was really out of necessity. So I remember when I was designing my collection, right? I think I have so many stories that I want to tell as a fashion designer. I wanted, you know, because the story was inspired by my trip to Japan, and you know, I was just talking about how in this beautiful village called Hagone, and how I was able to see, the mountains, and how I'm able to see like the waterfall, and then hear the sound, and I can, like see like museums like in the mountain, and I tried so many different kinds of transportation to, get to where I get to, and the journey is just so full, and I just felt like with the traditional fashion storytelling material, which would be, color, silhouettes, like shapes, and like just textile, it's very limited, right? Like I can never tell you how it feels like to see or hear the waterfall after a long day, right? So I was like, how am I gonna, share the story with, the person who's gonna wear my design, or people who are seeing this dress being put on people. So I was just started to look around and see what are some of the innovative ways I can use to kind of just convey the story. And I think prior to that, I've been always very curious about technology and how, like Silicon Valley tech companies are able to revolutionize our lives in a way that, you know, a design or a dress cannot. So I'm very, very deeply passionate about the way that Uber changes, how we call cars, and Airbnb changes the way how we travel. So this, this industry, or this like thing called technology, is always embedded in me. And I just started to look around, and I was like, wow, what if we can, bring in, whole new layer, or a whole new perception of, and to tell the story that I wanted to share with my audience. So, and then I think at that time when I started this whole idea, it was very early on, maybe like 6, 7 years ago, and nobody really coined the term augmented reality. I remember when I first started, I told my professor and told everyone that I knew back in school, I told them that I want this image to, to be able to animate it. And they're like, oh, you can use something like image recognition and like QR code. And it was very nascent. Like at that time, VR, AR wasn't something that people in fashion will care about, or even like have thought of, I have heard about. So I kind of went through a lot of like trial and errors just to quantify like what technology that I was looking for that can enable my goal, which was to tell story in a way that it's more enhanced. So I finally, kind of landed in the world of, using enhanced reality like gadgets, right? Like using a phone, an app, or VR, AR headset. But just to develop that, we, it was a very early stage. We kind of went through a lot of like iterations on, are we using the app? Are we using a VR headset? Or are we using glasses? Right. So at that time, I think what I, made a decision on was, like a phone app might be the most accessible to people, because everyone has a phone, and Instagram filter wasn't really popular. No, it wasn't a thing at that time. So I had to develop an app that kind of brings out all the great elements that's hidden on the garment. Yeah, so I would say it's, for me, it's really about like me just trying to like say something, and I can't find it, and I just kind of built it my own.
I see I
Hello?
muted myself. I muted myself. Tech issues for a tech panel. On the note of the work that you're referencing and the way that we connected, and you know this, Kailu, but I just want to share with the audience. I came across your work a few years ago. I was struck by the beauty of it because it was one of the first times that I'd seen interactive clothing with an AR component that was done fashion forward. Because there are a lot of examples where people have played with AR in clothing, in design work, bags, whatever, and all of it's very admirable. I want that trend to happen. I'm so about interactive clothing or immersive clothing. But I had not come across a designer who successfully had done the polish of the AR and traditional fashion design, with some very abstract motifs. And I actually didn't know that backstory of the inspiration. So that was really cool. I told you I've shared your work with countless students. I've referenced it.
Thank
It's
you.
just it's
This
beautiful.
really means
Yeah.
a lot. Thank
Yeah,
you
of
so
course,
much.
definitely. And now I'm gonna throw that question right at you, Anina, as well. How did you find yourself in this wonderful niche that we're in?
Well, my background is I come from a family of computer engineers, and I always tell the story that I am extremely lucky to um, have turned out this way simply because I was never excluded from tech. You know, when my dad was like, let's fork the hard drive out of this computer, like, you know, it wasn't like, hey, you boys, I have two brothers, come here. It was like, hey, you kids, come here. And also, you know, we had, I don't remember a time without computers of some sort because my dad was working in the mathematics field. And so Apple had this program to give computers to, you know, creative and mathematic-based people. I don't really know how we got those computers, but he worked at a private art school called Interlochen Arts Academy, which was a super forward-thinking school. But somehow we always had computers. I don't remember a time when we didn't. And so I think because of that, I got my, you know, 10,000 hours of practice in. And then it was like a whole thing we did. When my brothers went to code camp, I was expected to go to code camp. We would sit hours together, the three of us on the piano bench, and like play on the computer and try to hack it and do things with it. So when I grew up already with that, although when I entered as a young adult into modeling, to the horror of my family, who thought I should become a computer engineer, and I took a left at the catwalks, I became an international top model. And so I think I actually became a top model simply because I had technology at my fingertips. And so I was able to network faster. I was able to configure my email when there was no interoperability, you know, with mobile operators with inside of Europe. I was able to already pioneer like mobile blogging and sending information up to the cloud using TCP/IP connection because I just simply knew how to make all of that voodoo work, right? And I was
Yeah.
very lucky that I got discovered because the mobile internet and the internet were really small then, and they're, you know, you knew who was doing who. And Nokia Corporation were like, who is doing all of this stuff? I mean, I had like a mobile website with like all my photos on it that I could like SMS to somebody, you know, in a bar who was a photographer so that they would like quickly get my card and connect. And
So
then I
you've
had like
always had that connection to tech. Yeah.
and
Wow.
so
Okay.
when I looked around at the height of my career, I did the Gas Jeans campaign, you know, 4 times worldwide campaign, and I literally would get off the airplane and that was like me everywhere. And I'd sit at the bus station and people would be like, is that you in that poster? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And I'd be sitting next to me. And I'd go to the magazine stand and they'd be like, it's you. I'm like, it's me, you know? So all of a sudden I realized I had this huge megaphone in front of me and I had absolutely nothing to say. And I sat down and I was like, what could I give to this world? And at the time, whenever I was at the table with these huge tech companies, there were no women, not one. Not one
Mm-hmm.
in the whole building. And I thought, if I could make tech cool, then other girls would want to, you know, get into tech. And so I have this folklore. At the crossroads of fashion and technology, a NinaNet was born. And of course, I had to create this persona, which I grew into. But this fashion model, you know, who had her own mobile dress up game, who had like smart jewelry and clothes that lit up and like, you know, jetted around the world and was a supermodel and even had like a digital twin of herself, like that whole person, this new kind of supermodel that I launched in 2004 in Moliere's house with like 1,000 artists. And I lived at the top and I live streamed it all live, living at the top. It was a whole thing back then that nobody had ever done before. But I did all of that because I was like, I need to make tech cool so more girls will get into tech.
Yeah.
And then we need to make tech beautiful. Otherwise, nobody going to be wearing this stuff, you know? And so
Yes.
I did all those
That.
projects to make it cool. That's it.
Yeah. I agree with you. My passion for wearables in particular started a few years ago when I realized that a lot of incredible design for, say, HMDs, like XR, VR headsets, AR headsets, let alone other objects that can benefit people, cochlear implants. To what extent do you take into consideration beautiful design work because that's going to sell, or that's going to have a price point associated, or brand loyalty? Think of luxury brands, luxury's brought up earlier. And to what extent are you considering what I call inclusive industrial design, designing for everybody? Who are we designing these things for? Not only are they beautiful, but beauty, of course, hand in hand with function. So jumping back into questions for both of you, you're both coming from the fashion industry first, which I find really interesting. Kailu, you're a designer first. You're coming in with that mindset, and tech piques your interest. And Nina, you're a fashion model. You're working in that world, and you decide, okay, I want to lean back to some of my roots. How do I connect these dots? What do you think tech needs to understand to better incorporate fashion into the wearable revolution, and vice versa? What does fashion need to understand? Because you guys are coming from a very cool perspective from fashion first. Thoughts on that?
I can
You
speak
can
from the
answer
tech
one or
angle.
other. Yeah.
I can speak from the tech angle. I'm stronger in tech, even though I was a fashion model. I have really nothing to say about the fashion. So Kailu, that one's over to you. But on the tech side, I think the number one thing to understand is I understand the problem. A mold is extremely expensive to make. And so if you're a startup or whatever, you got one shot, you got one mold, right? And so you try to make something that will appeal to everyone. Plasticky, rubbery, with like no message at all. And, it's looking kind of like universally round and smooth. But in the end, it doesn't work. And we can all look at the graveyard of tech to prove that. And the reason is like you're not designing for anyone, therefore no one wants to wear your stuff. And so you really do have to take a design decision and say, I am making this for this person. And that's really a lot of the part that I play when I work with startups. I nail it down to who are we designing for? What problem are we designing to solve?
Mm-hmm.
And later we can come out with other wider, designs to address other issues. But we need to get the widest narrow of person and design for them. Because if you design for no one, you're dead. You're in the graveyard. You design for no one. Nobody will wear it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, right? I think when it comes to wearable technology and what technology enables you is this, it enables the individuality in all of you. And it's never one size fits all. And I think before when there's no technology, we always just go to this, go to a store and buy, a selection of like 10 clothes and everyone will wear the same thing. But now I think with technology, things could be more tailored and things could be tailored for your physical ability or your cognitive ability, and I think those things needs to be considered, and different body shapes and different expression, and I think all those things could be enabled through different types of technology. And I think from a fashion standpoint, a lot of fashion designers or the world of fashion always missing, in my opinion, is that the consideration of the user experience, because I think oftentimes this is how I was taught in school, that fashion is, it's an art. It's a way for you to express your story. It's a way for you to tell your ideas. But oftentimes people don't really see where the design is going. So I designed a beautiful piece of garment that could be sitting in a museum or it could be seen on the runway. But in reality, when you're trying to sell the clothing or have anyone to wear them, you will have to downsize the creativity by a large scale. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of, fashion being a storytelling medium, right? Because you're not telling the story anymore, but you're trying to like dump it down to something that you can wear to a dinner party or to grocery store. And I think what the tech industry does very well is to start from a problem, like I want to solve this problem. Hence there's different apps, and it's always I have a minimal viable product, right? I have to understand the user experience, have to hone in first before I scaled it up. And I think for fashion designers or the fashion world in general, you can start with the problem, or like who are you designing for and how are you going to make their lives better by incorporating your story, your inspiration into that. And I think a lot of the times when technology comes in, we're not only designing garment that is sitting in a museum, we're designing garments that can integrate into our daily lives, and usually with an element of problem solving. So I think in that sense, why don't we switch back and kind of start from the problem and then think of how do we not make it pretty. I think pretty is not really a good word when you design fashion. When you want to talk about fashion, I think it's really to make it stylish, or make it fit into whatever narrative that you're trying to say artistically, but to borrow a lot of the ideas from building technology company or UX design or user human-centered design. I think fashion can adapt a lot, and I think eventually it can bring in more audience.
Also, I would like to add to that, Kailu, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perspective, what fashion designers need to understand is, the classic model of fashion is I learn to design and then I have my collection, which doesn't make any money, but then I go and design for big fashion houses, and that's how I make money to then fuel my little brand to one day become a big brand. And I think if we're talking about making money here and creating jobs, which is really where I'm passionate about and why I created these kits, if you have greater skills and know how to integrate electronics into fashion, that is a growing market in healthcare, for healthcare, smart garments, wearables, right? Jewelry, wearables, gloves. That is a growing market. There's three major areas that generate revenue for fashion technology. So one is healthcare. Second is music industry, right? And sports tech, right? So sports tech, that's preventative medicine. That's like your sports tech clothing, your smart yoga mat, your, COVID detecting shirt, your sleep shirt for a bus driver, whatever. That's all preventative stuff, health tech stuff. Again, sports tech is the second greatest rev. And then third, okay, obviously it's a little bit slow right now, but traditionally, entertainment industry, music industry, putting LEDs in clothing for performances, that has been a really big revenue generator for fashion designers. So these three areas, suddenly you could be making a lot more money by working with technology and clothing, because it's a highly specialized field, and not have to go that starving artist route. So that's really where I'm focused, is bringing jobs to people who have an eye.
Yeah,
Right
and, yeah,
now.
and I think us, it's interesting that the three of us sitting in between the
Yeah.
crossroad of fashion and technology is that we are not. I think we're able to kind of build this system, or whatever tools that we are interested in, and kind of make it available to a wider range of designers or technologists, right? So for your kit, I assume designers can use it and technologists can use it, engineers can use it, or whoever works in the healthcare industry can also use it, right? So I think it's this tool that at the same, it's bringing in creativity, but also it's a lot of educational. There's a lot of educational value as well.
Because hardware is hard. That is the whole point. And what I want to do with the kits is get the hardware out of the way so that programmers can program their stuff in the cloud. You know, fashion designers can stick that stuff into clothes. You know, a technologist can like noodle away and put a whole bunch of sensors on. And we don't have to get bogged down in soldering and making sure firmware is compatible and all that BS. Like, I just wanted to create this, you know, plug and play turnkey solution so that we can get on beyond that nightmare and then go to the creative part.
I love that. You actually both separately bring up points, and I'm debating which is going to be the next question because I'm like, oh, both of them brought up things that are like right on my mind. We can go first with something that Anina, you said, which is clothing is content or wearables is content. So you bring up the markets where fashion designers or fashion companies will really see high rate of exchange in terms of getting paid back for their work of putting stuff out. You know, where can you actually build a revenue stream? You brought up entertainment, and I think about this a lot. Clothing as content, and that's definitely tied closely to augmented reality, but you can see this in a lot of other ways. In what you know, I'd love to get your thoughts. I won't give too many examples, but in what ways can clothing bridge that gap of constant content consumption that we have in our world today? And I've thought about this a lot. I've concept and done some speculative design on it, but it seems like it's on your brains too. Any thoughts on that?
Kailu, you first.
I thought you were pointing to Anina, but yeah. So I think that's a very interesting point. I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I think one of my wishes when I started to start a KG projects was really have this app that I've developed serve as a platform or as a tool that enables a lot of designers that can be not only like creating stories or like sharing their vision, but also become a revenue stream or a monetization for them as well. Because like think about it, if you are a content creator or a fashion designer or graphic designer, if you want to create some sort of animations or sound, you can put it on the platform and you can share it with your viewers, and they can constantly update what they want to be sharing with the world. And I think this idea of update, such a luxurious element that technology has brought us, right? Like before, and it's also much more sustainable. You don't have to go out and constantly like buy new clothing, but you can just like update and update a message and update your visual, like what are you trying to say today, and what are you trying to communicate, or how do you want to interact with others on a specific occasion. So I think there's a tremendous potential in that realm where we can use what we wear as a medium for us to talk to each other better and to share our stories better.
Absolutely.
I love
and we
that.
already you just made me think of something from a conversation a while ago. We already do it, right? Like I'm communicating something to you based on just what I'm wearing right now.
Yes.
These are the signifiers. They're some of the very first ones that you get when you meet someone, how they dress, how they move through the world, and the clothing that they're in, their gender representation, parts of their culture, nationality, etc. And it's a very, very interesting point that you're making me think of and tied to sustainability, which is a theme that's come up in the other two talks in this series, because I'm very serious about it, how much fashion wastes, how much tech wastes, and the idea that if you lean into slow fashion with interactive and immersive components, you might actually be able to confront waste by being able to change elements of your clothing in digital spaces. And that is such a cool idea. And thank you for putting it in my head right now. Anina, what were you going to say? I wanted to get that out.
Well, Not only that, I mean, just following the thread of sustainability, I remotely teleported into a big conference 2 years ago when it wasn't the thing, and I asked. I was virtual and they were all physical, and I was on a big screen. I asked, hey, what do you guys do on this wearable tech panel for sustainability? Because, I put a label in my wallets, my wireless charging wallets, letting a big ass label saying like battery inside. And then I created a circular fashion concept where you can send the wallet back to me and then we'll rip it apart and reuse the parts and stuff and recycle it responsibly. And then I was like, and then I'm using, QR codes and augmented reality to not have to have, all of this waste with like the paper manual that you get. And literally, I was like, anybody there? Can you hear me? Like nobody had anything to say. They were like, we don't do anything. We didn't really think of it. We'd love to hear your ideas, Anina. And so, I was like, are you kind of serious here? Like you're combining two things together. And anytime you do that, it makes it more difficult to separate them, right? So whenever I'm designing wearable technology or anything that I'm designing, I'm thinking first, how am I going to take this thing apart at the end of its life?
Great.
And I design in a modular way so that at the end I can fully disassemble as much of that thing as I can, and it can go to its respective places. So for example, I have these illuminated chokers, right?
Wow.
And the illuminated chokers, they fully, like, you can unscrew everything and send the plastic casing there and send the other things over there and send the LEDs over there and send the microcontroller board over there, and literally the whole thing can disassemble in front of you, because I want to make sure if I'm putting something with plastic out there in the world, it needs to be able to go to all its different places. And the same thing, like my luxury robot is kind of, I think, the best thing I've done so far, because literally every piece of that is modular. You can fully customize it to be, if you want like snow chalet, you can have like leather panels. If you want like bamboo, you can do bamboo. Like the whole thing is fully customizable, but more importantly, down to the microcontroller, the whole thing can be disassembled, and then all its pieces and parts can be reused or repurposed or sent to its appropriate, recycling place, wherever that magical place where stuff gets recycled. But my point is the same. When we design jacket, the jacket, literally it's like a pillow. The middle layer, we have the technology inside so that can get pulled out, it can get fixed. We have secret zippers everywhere that the user, I can't even find the zipper
Thought of
sometimes.
it
I'm like,
all.
where's the zipper? And then I have to call my designer. I'm like, I can't find the zipper. I need to get to the thing. And she's like, look for it near the armhole. I'm like, oh, but like, so that we can get the components out that are, defective, right? If that thing breaks, and then we can swap them out for parts that work. So that means having like tiny little connectors so that we can take out that little section where the fail points will be. And I think those are important things. You got to know where that thing is going to fail, and then you know how to plan for what to do and how to construct the garment so that when it fails, you can fix it and not have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so
So
love that.
important.
So
No, do you have thoughts on it? It just made me very
yeah, so I
happy.
think that just reminds me of, like in tech, there's a term called stress testing, right? I'm sure, Nina, you're familiar with that, and I'm so glad that you, as a designer, who's taking that into consideration, right? You're doing all this testing and you're thinking forward, in terms of how things will possibly fall apart in the future. And it will benefit the customer at the end of the day, right? Because they are not the one who's thinking about how am I going to do this thing, like at the end of the day.
I think really like the only thing I tell people is like I just have a lot more experience with how shit breaks. You know, like that's my only voodoo
That's the
magic.
engineering brain.
You know, I know
Yeah,
like
that's the
where
engineer.
this thing can potentially break. We built 162 gloves for Intel for CCTV at midnight, and the pressure was so intense because like that's like government and television and everything. And I tell you, dancers are little wearable tech destruction machines. Like, oh
Wait,
my
were the
gosh.
gloves for performance?
Yeah, they were for, you can see it on
So they were
my,
incorporated.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it
well,
used a gesture recognition, and I just would love to tell a little bit this story to say, you know, director Zhang Gang was like, I don't want any high tech in this. It always fails. We're not doing that. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I want a button, you know? And I was like, I really don't think a button is going to do it, but you want a button. And Intel's like, do whatever he says. I'm like, okay. And then he's like, I want it to be made out of nylon, like the thinnest. I was like, are you kidding me? This is going to be destroyed. I was like, I want padding. I want, I want to protect the thing. And nope, it was made out of nylons, like stocking material. It was terrible. And so
this is the
end
hard part of
result,
getting
yeah,
tech
yeah.
and fashion to
He's like, I don't
understand.
want to see it.
Yeah.
But in the end, he's like, when we do the performance and the camera goes over and he wants this human light grid, and he's like, why is there one green light? And I'm like, that's because your dancer did not push the button, you know? And then he was always like, why is there this pink light there? Why is this? I was like, because the dancers had been training for 6 months to do this huge performance, and nobody was like, 3, 2, 1, push the button, action. You know, nobody, like, they didn't have that in their data banks, right? So 1 week before, I'm like, screw the button. We're getting rid of this button. I soldered all the buttons off, and I'm like, we're using gesture recognition, because I watched the performance and I realized every time director Zhang Gang wanted the light pattern to happen, they all did this one gesture. They all raised up the ball. And every time they raised up, and I was like, that's it. And luckily I worked with an amazing engineer that could do all those calculations. And so we used that as the trigger. So that's just an example of how a high-tech solution beat the button, the low-tech solution, because the humans couldn't ergonomically figure it out in their 8, 7, 6, 5, push the button all at the
So
same
it's
time.
design. You know, it's design communication, and you bring up a great point with that story about how something I think about a lot. When will experimental and largely immersive wearables really go mainstream? Big piece of that is communicating how they work, how they benefit us, in whether it's identity or it is beauty and style, or if it has something to do with I don't know, a larger coordinated effort for communicating with different groups. I'm trying to reference both of your portfolios here. Um, all to say though, I'm very curious because we're getting close to time, so I'm going to ask one more question. What are your predictions for the future of wearables? You know, what do you see as coming down the pipeline that the industry should be aware of, given that you've worked with cutting edge technology? And
I
you take a
yeah,
little time to think about it.
yeah, that's a big question, and I
Good
don't.
question.
So I think for me, like there's one like saying that I always love. It's basically says the most profound technologies are the ones that disappear, right? So I think fashion tech has a long way to go, if we agree on that premise. I think that a lot of the times when we're dealing with fashion, that we're still thinking about gadget and what a digital element that I can incorporate into our clothing, and it's always this extra thing that's tagged along to overweight. I mean, it's at the end of the day, this is a process, right? But I hope that in the future, with more and more people joining this amazing movement, we're able to make technology into something that, we just don't feel it anymore. It's seamlessly incorporated into our everyday life. So I think I think that it's also, will be empowered by, like a smaller gadget, or, more wearable headsets or contact lenses, as Dara was very passionate about, right? So if all these things come together, I think wearable tech will be much more accessible to more people, because you just don't need anything. Just wear the cool thing and you'll be a superwoman.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love how that was phrased. I agree. There's an invisible quality in when that's integrated fully. And it's hard because there's certain standards for mainstream technology that fashion tech would have so far to go to catch up, as you just brought up, Kailu. But when it is invisible and perfectly integrated, I do believe that is the future. So I agree wholeheartedly. And Nina, do you have any predictions off the top of your head?
Well, just embodying what Kailu just said so elegantly, my Anina 2049 wallets, it's exactly that. People expect them to weigh a lot because a charger weighs a lot, like a power bank, and a cable, and it's all like you gotta like take all that stuff with you to keep your power. But they're so surprised when they pick up this wallet and it's super lightweight. That's because I went to the effort to find like the thinnest, lightest weight battery from Japan with 5,100 milliamps, so that you didn't have this wallet that was like a brick in your hand, right? And as far as the future is concerned, I am like consumed with domotics. I am all about the role clothing plays when connected to the smart building, the smart home, the smart environment. And I think it's often overlooked by the IoT segment and engineers. It's like they don't
I
really
agree.
consider the role that clothing plays. It can play a healthcare role. It can play a sportswear role. It can even play like you dancing, with your kids in your home role, and not to mention a whole like smart event, when we get back to that. But my fascination and why I created this IoT jacket that connects to the smart hotel environment is because obviously doing it for the smart home, how we treat garments, people would wad a hoodie up and that thing would break immediately. But a suit jacket in a hotel environment is treated with great respect. You don't wash it a lot. So it's really about finding those smart home, smart garment, smart environment, smart building situations, security, etc., where a garment can do the job with a swipe better than a walkie-talkie button headset, tarred
Yeah.
piece of equipment attached to you. And so I'm really consumed. I think the next big move is connecting all of the IoT devices to the cloud, to the smart home, to the city, and I'm consumed with domotics.
I also think about that topic all the time. I referenced this in one of the other talks, but I'm like, why is my shirt not my wallet? And it doesn't have to look like a wallet to do that. It should be able, why should I have to add different components of technology that would just look clunky? Why can't they be just beautifully designed into what I'm wearing every
Why
day?
can't my sneakers talk to my refrigerator and lock it
Say,
so that
we're
when
coming.
I
As I
come
come back
home,
to
I'm not reaching for the chocolate, right away. And instead it displays a
Hysterical.
little sign and you say, if you want to eat that, you need to go turn around right now and go do 200 more steps, please. Like we need this
That sounds evil. That sounds
interoperability.
torture.
No, I,
But you're
I,
right.
I
You're
think
right. Mm.
I think our environment can help us to do what? What is the purpose of wearables? What is the purpose of it? To feel good. Even as Kailu said, with the storytelling, stories make us happy. You know, this wearable tech is there to make our bodies feel good. Why? So I can get up in the morning and I'm not like, oh, I'm going to roll over and die right now and push through and drink a cup of coffee. Instead, I get up and I go, I feel great. I am going to go attack the day and go get my startup going, or go get my family going, or go get my kids going, or whatever it is that makes you happy. Go support somebody, go plant a tree, because I feel good.
Love that. Do you guys have any closing thoughts as we have to close out this talk, which is so much of a bummer because this is really interesting. You've great minds, and you've definitely both helped to build the future of what fashion looks like and integrate technology along the way. But yeah, any last thoughts or a piece of advice that you want to give to aspiring designers and creative technologists?
I think just be curious, seriously. Like
Yeah.
there's so many great tools out there that, people like Amelia help build, like this, they're so accessible these days. And then if you just want to get into the world of fashion tech, just get your hands dirty. And I think eventually we'll not be talking about fashion tech anymore because it's gonna be so integrated into our lives. And we just, who talks about like batteries every day right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to address the technical community, which is that, with great power comes great responsibility. And just because we can make something doesn't necessarily mean we should make something. And although I'm all for pushing the boundaries, I really want to say that as technologists, we hold great responsibility in our future. That means the psychological effects, the environmental effects of what we're building, and even, as I said, it's the societal effects. And, I just really try to keep it to just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. And I think that we should really think again and again and then move forward.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. This was wonderful. I learned a ton. I wish the conversation could continue, but I'm so happy that you're part of this three-part series for South by Southwest 2021. And yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Let's do our South by South dance since we don't
Yeah.
have the after party. Come on.
I love it. The
Kailu,
little recording.
swing your head.